Love a deck in a tin. Probably my favorite. Those are not as common, especially in the decks that I prefer. So one thing I'm really pleased with is the growing popularity of these 2-card boxes. And this deck is so adorable, so I thought I would just show it. Well, hey, it's Ina from Taproot Tarot, and today I'm doing the tag Show Me Your Decks Again by Angel at feedingmysoul1212. I really enjoyed the previous tag, Show Me Your Decks, and it's kind of a scavenger hunt, and I had fun kind of going through my decks and looking for some that would fit the prompts. The first one is a deck with a quote on the inside of the box, and I really thought I had one somewhere that had a quote, you know, where it's attributed to somebody else, and I couldn't find one except for some that were where the quote was on the inside of the guidebook. So I settled for one where it's just a statement from the creator. This is The Oracle of Awakenings by Lelania Simone, and it's a follow-up to Tarot of the Cosmic Seed, and I backed this one on Kickstarter. I think her Cosmic Seed was originally on Indiegogo, but this one I'm pretty sure was on Kickstarter. It's just really beautiful. I haven't had it out in a while, actually. And so this was a nice chance to check it out and kind of get reacquainted with it. And now I am inspired to keep it out and work with it. So that's another side bonus of these tags to kind of remember what I've got. The next one is a deck with a damaged box or card, and this one is the Rigel Tarot. And this is a vintage deck that can be on the pricey side, but I got it for a good deal because I got one with a damaged box. And it's a really quirky and fun deck. If you would like to see a full walkthrough of it, I have one a couple videos back. And I really love it. It's super cute. Next, prompt number 3 is a deck with one or several renamed cards. So I've got the Buddha Tarot by Robert M. Place. And pretty much everything is renamed in this deck. Initially, when this first came out, I got the newer edition, which has a really nice book and a nice box, but it's red feather and the cardstock is terrible. So I was really pleased when I found a vintage copy from the first edition, which has actual shuffleable cardstock. So now I have the nicer book, but also the nicer vintage deck. And they're kind of loose in that box, so I just have them in this bag here. But yeah, everything, like the Fool is renamed, everything is renamed. We have the Tower is the Flaming Disc. All of the suits are renamed. So we've got jewels, lotuses, double vajras, and then all of the triumphs are from Buddhist wisdom, and the courts are all renamed as well. So we have dakinis, animals instead of knights, the shaktis instead of a queen, and Buddha instead of a king. So it's a very cool deck. I haven't shuffled this one yet. I have shuffled the other one, and I regret that choice. I should have waited until I found a vintage copy because it's already chipping and bending and warping just from not very much use, honestly. I like to pair this with the Buddhism reading cards, and they're lovely. I really like these more for personal, self-development work, which is really nice. That was a deck with one or several renamed cards, and it's pretty much all of them. And the next one, prompt number 4, is a deck with reversible backs. And you might know that I'm a fan of Maritxu Guler. She is a Basque tarot writer, or was, I should say. Her given name is Maria or Marie, and the TXU at the end is a Basque suffix of endearment. So like we might in English put an IE or a Y at the end of a name to show affection. Chu is a way to show affection at the end of a name in Basque culture. So this is the Basque Mythical Tarot. Guler is her husband's name, or was. He was Swiss, and kind of really got her into tarot. The artist for this deck is Angel Elvira, or Vilra, and they have really cool backs, which you can see are reversible. I got this copy from Tarot Garden. It's not super easy to find, but I love Tarot Garden. I actually just put myself on the waiting list for it, and some weeks later got an email that it had come in. So I'm not sure if she sees what you want on the waiting list and she tracks it down for you, but I was really pleased with that. But it's a beautiful, beautiful deck. And I have been kind of collecting her writings because she, I think, used to be probably Fournier's main tarot expert and wrote the books. She didn't write the current books, but she wrote the ones that were more specific to individual decks. And all of the decks with her name on them are pip decks, which I think is cool. And so I just kind of collect decks with her writing associated with them. And I'll do a video on her at some point, for sure. So that is a deck with reversible backs. And it is the Mystical Basque Tarot, the Basque Mythical Tarot, sorry, by Fournier, by Maritxu and Angel Elvira. Number 5 is a deck with a star on the box. And it's the Estrella Tarot. I always want to say Estrella, but Ash, the creator, says Estrella. And this is an awesome deck. I love it so much. This is the one that has several celebrities in it. And I've watched both of Ash's French language videos on the different characters who are featured in this deck, and it's really cool, the reasoning behind each one. But I haven't seen those detailed explanations in English, so that's another future someday video plan, is to go through with the guidebook and tell you about the different characters featured in this deck, which is a really lovely deck. I love how it's kind of broad and flat and easy to shuffle. They did that to make shipping less expensive, which I think is so thoughtful. But yes, this is a deck with a star on the box, the Estrella or Estrella Tarot. Number 6 is a deck with no or few people in the minors. And for that, I have the Antique Anatomy Tarot by Claire Goodchild. And this was a difficult one for me because I think the intent is for it to be no humans, but I think of, you know, animals as people, of course, and also a lot of other things because I'm kind of, you know, animist in thought. So this, though, I'm sure most of us are familiar with it. It's a pipish deck, a pip deck, really. And it doesn't have people, but it has body parts. So I thought this counted pretty well. And we've got surgical implements and structural hardware to help keep folks trucking along. Oh, and cups were potions. And then the quartz are, you know, they have skulls, but not necessarily, you know, full people. I wouldn't call them people. They're body parts. So coins feature some head, you know, skulls again. This king is a child's skull, which I think is unfortunate. There's actually a few cards where it's an adult card, but the skull is that of a child. I really like this art, though. I forever ago got on the waiting list for the Oracle of Oddities, you know, to get the email for whenever that was available again. So back in April, I got that email, and so I pre-ordered that, and this has been on my list for a long time, and I thought, well, now that I am going to get that Oracle deck, I should order the tarot to go with it. And I will show you a couple of pictures from my office so you can see that this art style really does appeal to me. I've got it hanging in my workplace, so I'll insert those here. And somehow on a comment somewhere, I got the Oracle of Oddities mixed up with the Memento Mori, And I don't remember whose video it was on, but they were talking about using the Memento Mori for ancestor work. Of course, that's, it's in the name. And I was thinking of the Oracle of Oddities though. And I was like, oh, I never thought to use that in ancestor work. And I'm sure they were like, really? It's like literally the name of the deck. And, looking back on it, I was like, oh no, that was silly. But I can't remember who it was. So if you're watching this, I was thinking of Oracle of Oddities, not Memento Mori. So that is the Antique Anatomy Tarot. And it has no or few people in the minors. Number 7 is a deck that does not have a person in the full card. Now, I couldn't find anything. I thought, somewhere I must have a deck that has very abstract or stylized fool that wouldn't really count as a person, or even a deity. I definitely have decks that feature a lot of deities, so I thought, well, that wouldn't necessarily be a person. They're, kind of, more energy or whatever. So, but even the deity decks, like the full card is the one that's the most people-y. So we had a really hard time with this one because I couldn't just use an animal deck because I obviously consider animals people. So for this one, I'm going to change this to human. So this is a deck that does not have a human in the full card. Now I can't make that same change for the last prompt because those are definitely humans. They're human remains, but they're humans. So we're keeping it people for the last prompt, but changing it to human for this one. And for that, I've got the White Sage Tarot by, sorry, I'm terrible with names, Teresa Hutch. And this is one I had my eye on for a while because it is really cute. And it's in a tin. I love a deck in a tin. But I didn't realize until Marie-France pointed it out that it's a pip deck. And then I was like, oh, well, I definitely want this. So it's a very sweet deck. It's got, I think, maybe some references to RWS. Like the strength and justice are switched. And I think a few of the shapes are maybe similar. But overall, it's an animal deck, which I really enjoy. So let's find the fool. And here we have a wolf pup playing with a stick. How cute is that? So we can all use a cute little puppy image in our lives right now, I'm sure. So that is a deck without a human in the Fool card, and that is the White Sage Tarot. Number 7, a deck with your favorite box design. And some people interpreted this as the aesthetic design, and others interpreted it as the functional design of the box. And I interpreted it as the functional design. I do, like I said, love a deck in a tin. Probably my favorite. Those are not as common, especially in the decks that I prefer. So one thing I'm really pleased with is the growing popularity of these 2-part boxes. And this deck is so adorable, so I thought I would just show it. Like, this is especially cute. Look how tiny this is. I will compare it to the Estrella Tarot. Is a standard size. And so this is super cute. Super tiny. This is just labeled as the Classic Tarot from Lo Scarabeo, and it's a Soprafino. And look at how tiny. It's a tiny little guidebook. I'm not a big fan of the backs. I don't like when the backs are a card design. They're really pretty, though, of course. I'm going to admit, though, I haven't even tried to shuffle this deck. But look how little it is. So this is a Soprafino deck. And it's just a little mini in a cute little 2-part box. So I would say, other than a tin that actually fits the deck, that a 2-part box is my favorite, but not the telescopic kind or any of the fancy kinds, just the basic 2-part box. And for example, the vintage Marseille by Lo Scarabeo is one of my favorite decks and comes in a similar box. And I'm really glad that Lo Scarabeo is going that direction, because these are, they don't take up a ton of space, but they're much sturdier than the tuck box. This is the Classic Tarot by Lo Scarabeo, and it's a deck with my favorite box design. Number 9 is a deck that I've made a 180 on, and this is one that I was really looking forward to, and I'll give you a little bit of backstory. So one deck that I find fascinating is the Udapakar deck, and he was really into the pips and courts. He did not care about the majors, though, or the triumphs. So you can kind of see with this art style, he really phoned it in. Like, these are pretty much just kind of scribbled. And that becomes especially obvious once you get to the pips And all of a sudden, it's just a beautiful art style. His original deck was not colored, but this is his line work. And clearly he really cared a lot about the pips because they're gorgeous. And he just has a really interesting and different system that I just think is pretty cool. It's a system that actually tries to show the meaning of the numbers in the pip cards. It's quite lovely. But obviously the triumphs in his deck are, I don't want to insult him, but I don't think he cared about those very much. On the other hand, Oswald Wirth didn't care about the minors, the pips, or the courts, but only about the triumphs. And so created a couple of decks, first in 1889 and then in the 1920s. I'm not sure if the later one was his art or based on his art, although it is always attributed to him. But this Symbolic Tarot of Wirth is the later 1927 edition. And it has these backs. And it's a really lovely deck. The art is really beautiful. I actually think the drawings in his original are prettier, but they don't have the decoration around the sides. With this particular deck, and Robert Farrah of Tea and Tarot, I love his channel, he did a video on campy decks and pointed out how campy these courts and pips are, and they really are. Let me show you some of the courts. These just look like kind of badly done comic books, and I don't want to crap on this artist, but this art is pretty campy, and it doesn't match Oswald Wirth's art really at all. That's what we have as a kind of a preamble to this deck. When I heard about it, I thought this is a perfect solution, and it is the Universal Wirth Tarot, which has Wirth's triumphs with Uta Pakar's pips and courts. So how great would that be? So I was really excited to receive this. I don't tend to look at walkthroughs or look too closely at decks before I get them. I should really do that because this was a huge disappointment. Like, they don't do justice to Oswald Wirth's art at all. Some of them are okay. It is an Italian artist, and so a lot of them, to kind of paraphrase Robert Farrah again, Italian tarot artists tend to make things unnecessarily porny, and I think that's true of this deck for sure. Some of them are nice. That's a nice strength card. A little cartoonish. It has a pretty cool death card, but again, it's kind of comic book-esque. A really porny star card. A pretty beautiful moon card, actually. Not necessarily porny sun card. And then it gets kind of even worse with the world card. So I don't know, it doesn't do justice to Wirth's lovely art, and it's very Italian in style. It does do justice, however, to Uta Pakar's art, and I think this is actually really nice. And even the people in this, if you go to the courts, they're well done and really not porny at all. So I'm not really sure what happened with the majors. It's the same artist. So yeah, really lovely art in the Uta Pakar section, not so much in the Oswald Wirth section. And so I was really disappointed by this deck. And I thought maybe, you know, since the Symbolic Tarot of Wirth has really campy minors, and this has really campy majors, I could just split these decks up and put the nice art with the nice art and the campy art with the campy art. I tried that out, and you know, they're both Lo Scarabeo decks, so it's no problem as far as cardstock goes, but the backs don't match at all. And then there really aren't much for borders on the Golden Tarot of Wirth. And there are the typical very wordy borders on the Universal Wirth. So I didn't like the decks mixed together, so I don't know what the solution is. I think it's a really cool idea to have a deck that has the actual art of Wirth, maybe with an Uta Pakar minors set. That would be just super cool, but The Universal Tarot of Worth is not it, I'm afraid. And that was number 9. A deck I did a 180 on, and it's the Universal Tarot of Worth by Lo Scarabeo. Number 10 is a deck with an even major on the box. So I've got Temperance here on the Golden Marseille. You can see it's a pretty shiny deck. All the cards are shiny like this too. It's cute. This is an old beat up box. But number 14, Temperance. Number 11 is a deck on my storage area or shelf that was, let's see, with the box title facing the opposite direction. Most of my decks are in drawers, and so they're kind of in all different directions. I couldn't really decide what opposite would be. I do have a shelf next to me that's one of those tree shelves, and that's also a little bit chaotic. But this one just happened to be facing this way instead of this way, like my other ones. So I chose this one. It is Paul Hewson's Dame Fortune's Wheel Tarot. It has illustrated minors that are more inspired by the Atea system. So it's a really cool deck and book as well for the history. And Paul Hewson's book on the history of tarot is top notch as well. And as is tradition, 3 of the courts are named after legendary figures, not the knights. But this is based on an old card game. And so you'll see that kind of repeated, that theme repeated in a lot of tarot cards. But yeah, they're really beautiful cards. Some of them are reminiscent of the Visconti decks, specifically the virtues, such as justice here, I believe. Yeah, and strength, you can see fortitude, influence, as well as, this is labeled the world, but it's styled as a fame card from Aminciati, with that similar halo. And then you can see it does have illustrated minors as well. But a different system from RWS. So if you like illustrated minors but prefer a more historical system than RWS, then that's a good option. And that is a deck whose title was reversed on my tarot shelf, and it is Paul Hewson's Dame Fortune's Wheel Tarot. Number 12 is a lonely deck that I don't store with my other decks, and I don't have one that's permanently lonely, but this one has been on a shelf by itself next to my bed because I was reading The Neuroscience of Tarot by Siddharth Ramakrishnan, and some of the exercises require an RWS deck, or it helps to have that imagery. And this was really my most RWS deck when I started reading that. Since then, I have gotten a copy of the Centennial edition of the RWS deck just to have as a reference to familiarize myself with the art. But yeah, this is Cat Black's Golden Tarot, and it's very RWS. It follows the imagery really closely, but just happens to have a more Renaissance style art, which I really love. That has been alone on a shelf, but now that I've grabbed it off of that spot, I'll probably put it away. It won't be lonely anymore. Number 13 is a deck that you associate with the current season. I am really bad at pairing decks with seasons. The person who's really good at it is Ren. She can take a historical Marseille tarot and look at the colors and pair it with a season. And once she says it, I'm like, oh yeah, for sure, but I never would have noticed that by myself. And so I tried to look at my historical Marseille decks to see if I could do that, and I just can't. I don't have that ability. But I did find the Gay Marseille by Charlie Claire Burgess, and it has some great, just very flamingo pink and turquoise type colors that are very summery. Let's see if I can find. And it's also just like it's a subversive deck, and I highly recommend their guidebook that goes with it as well. It's a saint from antiquity who survived being attempts to kill them, or survived being hanged, I believe. I'd have to reread that part of the guidebook, but the definitions in the guidebook are really great for decolonizing and reconsidering tarot meanings. But it's also a really fun party deck, which I think is great vibes for summer. Like, that's a beach outfit for sure. And I got this deck accidentally in time for Pride Month. I'm the type who, I forget what month is what. I'm kind of bad about that. But I was hanging out with a friend who was talking about their top surgery coming up, and it occurred to me that I do not have a deck that represents them, and I needed to fix that. And I was like, why don't I have the Gay Marseille yet? So I got the Gay Marseille, and it happened to come right in time for Pride Month. So I've really been enjoying it. The shuffle is wonderful. The guidebook is amazing. And yeah, I'm gonna definitely keep using it because it is an excellent summer deck. So that is 13, a deck you associate with the current season, which again is not my thing. But the Gay Marseille, it's very cool, and it is very summery, I would say. Number 14 is a deck in which my favorite animal makes an appearance, and that's another hard one for me because I just don't have favorites. But I would have to say maybe my top animal favorites would be probably snakes, horses, and rabbits, but also dragons. And my son, he's 21, he just got back from a backpacking trip in Northern California, and he brought home a tarot deck for me. So this is my first tarot deck that's been gifted to me by somebody else, and it's from my son, which is so sweet. And this is the Tarot of the Divine. This is one, I told him I'd had my eye on it, and I think it's really pretty. I don't generally read RWS, so it's probably not one that I would have bought for myself. So I was really, really stoked that he bought it for me. It's got a lot of fairy tale imagery, but it also happens to have a lot of representation of my favorite animals. So I will find examples of each. It just has really beautiful animals in general. There's a snake. That's not my favorite snake in this deck, though. I love these. These two raccoons are apparently shapeshifters, and one of them is looking at the real moon, the other one's looking at the reflection of the moon, and it's unclear which is reality and which isn't, which is kind of cool. I really love the story of Gilgamesh and Enkidu, the Epic of Gilgamesh, I guess. And I think this is a really cool depiction of them. It's a very unusual depiction of Enkidu. So when I saw this card, I thought, is that supposed to be Gilgamesh and Enkidu? Because Gilgamesh does look Sumerian, so that's easier to guess, but it's an unconventional representation of Enkidu. And the description of that image in the guidebook is just lovely. So yeah, my son and I went through these together. There's a bunny rabbit, one of my favorites. I like that page as well. So there's a brief description of each of these, either legends or mythologies or fairy tales. Here is a gorgeous horse. I love this Mongolian horse depiction. This is probably my favorite horse in the deck. There are others. But yeah, it was really sweet that he got this for me, and he came home and did laundry at my house before going back to his apartment. And so we went through this deck together. This was one of his favorite cards. He likes the little husky pup, maybe Malamute and the grandma. These reindeer are very cool. I really do like this cow too. It's not one of my top favorites, but yeah, the animals in this deck are just all beautiful. Here's my favorite snake in this deck. Isn't that gorgeous? It reminds me of the book The Cosmic Serpent. If you haven't read that book, that's one of my favorite books. It has a gorgeous old turtle depiction. So let's see, we've gotten a bunny, a horse, and a snake. But there are some cool dragons in here too. Here's another horse that's quite lovely. I love this fae person with a goat. It's just great. Okay, and I couldn't put it away without showing you this super cool dragon. That was another one of my son's favorites. And he and I are both big dragon fans, so I think there are other dragons in this deck as well. But yeah, lovely deck, and it was a gift, a lovely gift from a kid, which was so nice. And I should say too that he, when he was little, gifted me probably my very first card deck. It's just a yoga deck. I have a bunch of these now. And probably when he was, I would say maybe 7, he bought this for me. And you know, I used to play cards as a kid and was really good at it. And as you can probably imagine, I used to stare at the art, and I was a relentless question asker, so I was constantly asking questions about what was going on with these court cards. Why is he stabbing his head, you know, in the King of Hearts, or, you know, just asking questions about who are these people kind of thing. And I'm sure my parents absolutely love that. But yeah, somewhere along the line, I stopped playing games too much. For whatever reason, never had any of my own card decks. My son had some cards of his own, like Uno and that kind of thing when he was little. But yeah, I never really had any sets of cards of my own. Until he got me this yoga deck, which is kind of cool. And now, of course, I have way more cards than I could possibly need, but it was still really nice to receive a gift from him. That was the Tarot of the Divine, and it has some of my favorite animals in it. Finally, number 15 is a deck with a rainbow either on the box or in the cards. I am so sorry this is cheating, but I'm just gonna do the, what do they call it? The full spectrum edition of the Trionfi della Luna by Patrick Valenza. And it's so funny that I ended up with these because I had been keeping my eye on the remaining versions of this deck for so long because I really did want the original. And of course that's been out of stock forever. And one by one, all the other color variations kept going and going. The Paradoxical was on my list for a little while there, and that sold out. And I kept thinking, surely this is going to become mass market, and so I won't have to buy one of these odd colorations. And sure enough, it has gone mass market with US Games. The Illustrated Pips edition is out now, and the Marseille edition will be coming out soon, so I'm super excited about that. So my first thought was, okay, cool, now I don't have to buy one of the odd colorations. And then I thought, oh, but those are going to go out of stock, and they might be kind of like collector's items. So so then I went ahead and bought the only one that he had left, which is the full spectrum edition, which is really cool. So this certainly isn't as readable as the original coloration, and I haven't tried reading with it yet, but I am glad to have it. It's a really cool, interesting deck. And you never know, maybe at some point I'll find a need for a rainbow colored deck for reading. I do recognize it's kind of cheating. It's not really a rainbow, but it's rainbow colored. I would say that counts as having a rainbow on the box or in the cards. And that was prompt number 15, a deck with a rainbow on it, on the box or cards, and it is the Trionfi della Luna, the full spectrum edition. So this was the tag, Show Me Your Decks Again. Again, thanks to Angel from feedingmysoul1212 for coming up with these great scavenger hunts. And I will let you check out this the reprint version of Robert M. Place's Buddha Tarot as we head out. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed my selections, and I will talk to you next time.